already wondering, well, what happens if it turns out that we have something in a style sheet that's external, something inside of a page, and then something on an individual file? You're probably wondering that, and I'm with you. We're going to get to that. See? See? There's your little teaser. I promise we're going to get to that. But first, let's actually get in and start doing a little bit of a demo. I think it's time, don't you?
Yeah. Start to actually see the CSS in action.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's see. And I'm going to apologize, and this is going to be my one apology. You are going to notice I'm sort of down a paw here. I really should come up with like a fantastic story involving ninjas or something, but I actually just lost a battle with a wine glass, which is really what happened there. So if you notice my typing is a little slow, there's my apology.
I mean, the tragic gumbo loss, I think, is a good story.
Yeah, that is a good story. I had this fantastic pot of gumbo, cleaning a wine glass over here. Wine glass shatters. And of course, the glass also wound up in the gumbo, so the gumbo was lost. That was tragic. That was tragic. We'll be holding a memorial service later this week for the gumbo. So please send filet powder. Okay. In any event, my house was smelling fantastic as well. All right. Let's go in and let's set up a basic web page here. Now, you're going to notice that in all of our demos, we're going to be doing basic HTML here. So we're not going to be doing MVC. We're not going to be doing Flask. We're not going to be doing PHP. We really are focused in on just the CSS. But one big thing to highlight is, of course, you can use CSS with MVC, with Flask, with PHP, with Node. So it's going to apply everywhere. But one of the big things that we wanted to try and do is keep it as simple as possible. And so really just HTML.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of your demos have MVC in them, do
No, they don't even have JavaScript in them, because I just want you to know that all the styling, CSS.
Exactly. Just CSS. All CSS all the time. Okay. So in any event, let me go in, web, and let's go in and CSS demos. And I'm just going to highlight mine just to separate them from yours. Christopher Demos. There we go. Perfect. And let's hit OK. And by the way, we are going to be throwing all of these up onto GitHub, and we'll go ahead and share out the little GitHub link a little bit later. But all of these will be available for you to use. Creating projects. Perfect. OK. So let me just go in and say add new item and HTML, and let's go ahead and call this my index page. And let's get rocking and rolling here. All right, now for right now, I'm just going to put the style right inside of here. And the reason that I'm going to do that is just for simplicity's sake, because I'm going to be kind of bouncing back and forth between the style and the HTML. So just to avoid going back and forth from file to file to file, I'm just going to do it inside of here. And then in a couple of minutes, we'll go off and move that somewhere else. So let's just go in and say style, which is spelled like that. Cool. So now let's go in and create a little div tag. And of course, since this is a development class, we're required hello world.
Hello word.
Ah, there we go.
It's also a real thing, hello word. Yeah. If you're creating your first Word document.
There you go, yeah, hello word. Yeah, that would work. All right. And now, Control F5. And I'm just going to use the snap feature here, maybe. Where's my browser? Come here. There we go. OK. And let me also kind of zoom in on that real quick. All right. So I'm just going to use the snap feature here. And Windows 7 was my idea. There we go. So there's our page over here on that side, and there's our HTML. So like we mentioned, the way that style works, if you want an element, all you have to do is to simply say the name of the element, curlies, and then right inside of here, key value pair. So let's just go in and change the font. So I'm going to say font family, and I'm going to use Comic Sans MS here. I would never recommend that you ever actually use Comic Sans MS. But the reason that I'm using it is really just because of the fact that you'll notice it's a very visible change. So sort of like changing the color, that's very visible. The moment you change something to Comic Sans MS, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that Christopher put the style in the head part of the HTML document. And if you are doing in-page CSS, that is where you should put it.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so there it is. That's all there is. Just simply name of the element, and away you go from there. But if I wanted to go in and specify a particular, again, type, then what I could do is I could say title, and then, again, curly, and then maybe we go in and we say color, colon, and let's go in and change something to blue. Now, if I save this and I hit refresh, you're going to notice no changes. Because, of course, I don't actually have an element with a class on it. So let's go in and say div, and let's say class equals, I love that bit of IntelliSense. You'll notice that it actually, right there, title, there we go. And I can now go and say title. I'll just kind of keep it nice and easy, and I'll hit save, and I'm going to hit refresh. Now, when I hit refresh here, you're going to notice, of course, that title appears, that we were expecting, and you'll also notice that it's blue. And that we were also kind of expecting, because of course you'll notice that I had class, and I had my little class down here. But what are the other things that you might notice about that text? What font is it using?
Comic Sans.
It's using Comic Sans. Why is that? Well, what is cascading, or I sort of gave away the answer there. What does CSS stand for?
Cascading style sheets.
There you go, cascading style sheets. So, your styles will cascade. So we said that we want our div tags, all div tags, globally, to use Comic Sans MS. I said that I wanted something with that class to be blue. So what's happening is that it's applying all of those styles together. All right, now give me 1 second here. I just need to fire up my File Explorer here, just because I want zoom it and zoom it. Zoom it, because it's a great little presentation tool. And I'm going to bring up the F12 tools here, because I love being able to go in and actually select the items, and we can see this in action here. So let me just kind of zoom that around, and I'm going to click on the little element selection button right there, and then let me click on title. And once I click on title, if I come over here, what you're going to notice inside of our style section is we've got our div tag here, and we've got our title class here. So it's actually showing me every single style that it read to make that happen. So why is it Comic Sans MS? Well, it's Comic Sans MS because we told div tags to be Comic Sans MS. And why is it blue? Well, because of the fact that we said that class title was going to be blue. So that's how all of that's going to come together. Now, you might be wondering at this point, all right, well, now we've seen that if you say, well, I want the font to be this and the color to be this, then it will combine everything. What happens if something said do red, for example, and something else said do blue?
Ooh, conflicts.
Conflicts. All right. Well, fortunately, we've got a full section on conflicts. I teased the slide. Let's actually do it now. Let's talk about CSS inheritance and conflicts. And I think the easiest way to describe this is really in 2 very simple steps. Last right wins, and whatever closest describes the item wins.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're going to break all of that down. But if you keep those 2 things in your head, you'll be just fine in, I think, every case. All right. So, cascading, like we said, it's right there in the name. Conflicts are expected. But conflicts only arise if something says do one thing and something else on that exact same property said do something else. So if it happened to be one thing said do red, another thing did do blue, that's a conflict. In our case, that wasn't a conflict because we said we wanted the font to be something and we said we wanted the color to be something. No conflict there. So those are simply combined. So the question then becomes, all right, well, what about inside of a conflict? Well, step 1, last right wins. and everything is going to be applied in order. So the first thing that's actually going to be applied, and it's reverse on my slide because I was trying to show whatever the most powerful was.
Yeah.
It's reverse on my slide here. It's going to apply first, we'll do it that way, there we go, the external style sheet. Then it's going to apply the style section, and then it's going to apply the style attribute. Or if you like to be kind of a more positive person, then the style attribute takes precedence, and then it's the style section, and then it's the external style sheet. So let's do this. Let's actually get in and do a demo here and kind of see that in action. Perfect. All right, so let me maximize that, and let me sneak on into here, and I'm going to say add, and I want a style sheet. And actually, you know, I'm going to be kind of a good developer here. I'm going to create a brand new folder, and I'm going to say styles, and I'm going to add it into there. Style sheet, perfect. And let's just call this index, kind of match the name of the page. There we go. All right. And now what I'm going to do inside of here is I'm going to say pound title. So if you remember, we had a class already called title, and see, I told you I was going to do it at some point. Dot title. There we go. Told you I was going to do it. And let's go ahead and say color colon, and let's say red. So just to kind of review here, you're going to notice blue here, red there. So let's kind of see what happens. Let me make sure that I link this, and I love this about Visual Studio. Just simply drag drop.
And it's linked, wow.
Yep, just like that. So it's already got everything. It doesn't put in the type equals, and that's fine. You really don't actually need that.
Yeah, CSS is default.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's bring back up my browser. And what you're going to notice is that sure enough, my title is still blue. Why is it blue? The reason that it's blue is because that was set on the external file. We said on the actual HTML file that we want that to be blue here, so blue is going to win. And you'll also notice that if I go back in and I select that in the F12 tools, I love this about the F12 tools, that we can actually see that, there we go, in action down below. So you'll notice down below there's our little div, okay, that we were expecting, and right here are the two classes. And I can see where those were applying from. And you'll also notice it does give me little score things as well. And if we want to get really, really technical, there are score things that apply with CSS. But I always think it's just simpler. Last right wins, and whatever best describes the element. Just stick to that, and that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Yeah. But you'll notice right here, that's crossed out. So we can see the browser saw it. The browser saw that external file. The browser saw, hey, we want the color to be red. But it said, wait a minute, no. Something else wins. And it's going to have that blue win. So you'll notice that the red is all crossed out. Blue wins.
Yeah, and what's nice about the F12 tools is if you deselect, the title color attribute, you can see what would happen.
Yep, exactly. So just like Helen mentioned, let's actually just do that. So let's take away that little title right there, and now you'll notice that it changes to red. So it's a nice way that you can go in and play around with things to kind of see that in action, kind of test to see how things would work. And you'll actually notice there are tools. I want to say the name of the tool is Sidewaffle. I think that's the name of the tool.
I haven't heard of Sidewaffle.
Sidewaffle. So it's a little add-on that you can go get. John Galloway loves Sidewaffle. It's a little add-on that you can go get, and it does an awful lot of like little add-on tools with CSS and things like that. And I want to say that one of the features for Sidewaffle is that it will give you the ability to go in and play around with this and have it automatically update inside Visual Studio. So kind of a slick little tool there. I want to say it's Sidewaffle. I'm gonna check at break. Okay. All right. In the meantime, let's go back in and kind of keep playing around here. So you'll notice again that external, that internal. Let me also do this real quick. I'm going to just say manage NuGet packages. And just because I'm willing to bet that somebody listening is playing around with Bootstrap. And one of the things about Bootstrap is that Bootstrap can be very overwhelming. And because there's, a billion different classes that are inside of there. I don't think I'm exaggerating by that much. But there's like a billion different classes and so forth. And so a lot of people will see Bootstrap and they'll just start to go, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with all of this. And they get very overwhelmed when they want to go in and play around with the style that Bootstrap is going to provide. Well, here's the thing, is the styling that Bootstrap is using is doing CSS. So all of the same rules apply. So let's say that right here, I dragged out the Bootstrap min CSS, there we go. And down below, I said div class equals, and let's say Jumbotron, and let's say div and hello Bootstrap. There we go. And let's go in and say Bootstrap. Okay, and so you'll notice that we get that little gray background, we get the font and all of that. All of that is coming in from Bootstrap and the Jumbotron class. We can overwrite that. So if I want the text inside of Jumbotron to be blue, for example, fine. Then all I would have to do is just simply say style, and then dot Jumbotron, and then right inside of here, I can just say color colon blue. Let's save that. Let's come back over here, hit refresh, and you'll notice that it's blue. And again, if you want that in an external file, let's just cut that real quick. And I'm just going to put it into my style section. I'm kind of keeping it separate from the other one, style sheet. And I'm going to say Bootstrap demo. There we go. And let's just paste that inside of there. There we go. Save. And let's just do a drag and drop here. And you'll notice I just need to make sure that it's after. Last right wins. So I'm just putting it after the original Bootstrap. There's my custom one. Let's go in, hit save. Let's come back over here, hit refresh. And you'll notice it's still blue. So when it comes to Bootstrap, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we've got an awesome Bootstrap MVA. But when it comes to Bootstrap, Bootstrap can be very overwhelming because of all the different classes. But at the end of the day, what is it?
CSS.
And all the same rules still apply.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we should also mention that there's another way to overwrite CSS properties, override CSS properties, and it's not recommended. Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Go for it.
It's the important property.
Okay.
So for instance, if you have two properties that are in conflict, and one is maybe one is not exactly the last right. If you put in exclamation mark important after the property, it will become more important and overwrite that style. This is not a good practice. You should not use this, but it is one of the ways that you see a lot of people overwriting styles.
I would see that getting very messy very quickly.
Use it sparingly, preferably not at all, but it is there.
Okay, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Now, let's kick on back to slides here. We've got just one last little conflict here that's worth highlighting, and that's in the case of an element. So what happens if maybe we had something that was set for a div tag and for a class? And one was supposed to be red, one was supposed to be blue. What do we do in that case? And the best way to describe this is whatever best describes the element. So if I just say globally, I want all div tags to be something, that's going to apply first. And then if I say I want classes to be, or a particular class to be something, that's going to apply second. And then the ID is going to apply third. Again, last right wins. Or if we want to be kind of the more positive way, what's going to be more important? ID is more important, and then class, and then element. Or if we break this down and actually just, look at it, just do a demo. I like demos. Let's go in and just do a demo. So let me do this. I'm going to just sneak right down here, and I'm just going to say div, and I'm going to say class equals title, and I'm going to say ID equals green. And this is our conflict. Here, we'll make it, conflict with exclamation points. All right. So let's, for right now, just go in and say color colon red And let me go like this. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you ready for this?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. So our little conflict text here. So you'll notice that right now I've got a div on it, and I've got my class equals title. So you'll notice on div I've got red. You'll notice my class title I've got blue. What color do you think conflict is going to be in?
It would be whatever is closest. So I would say blue.
There you go. And it's going to be blue. So sure enough, our conflict is blue. Now, let's go in and add on our ID as well. I love IntelliSense. There we go. And let's go in and say color, green. And then we'll come back over here. And now if I hit refresh, what you're going to notice is that it's green. So for the element, then for the class, then for the ID, ID is going to win. So whatever best describes the element. Now, the easiest way to handle conflicts, I think, in general, is try to avoid them whenever possible, just because it can get very messy very quickly if you're not careful. And again, if you're ever not sure, the F12 tools do such a great job of showing you exactly what's going on there. And again, you'll notice kind of the scores at the end there. So that had the highest score, which is why that won. But again, I always think it's simpler. Just element, class, ID. Just sort of keep that, and the rest is pretty straightforward from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I see a lot of people are asking about, is Bootstrap the alternative to CSS? What is the difference between Bootstrap and CSS?
That's a great question. All right. So in a nutshell, Bootstrap is a template. Bootstrap is an out-of-the-box set of JavaScript files and CSS that's going to be designed to help make it easier to lay out a site, because it does a lot of things automatically for you. So for example, let's come back over here to my little Visual Studio, my very simple little index HTML. And you'll notice that with my index HTML, I've got nothing here. There's no automatic banner, there's no automatic button style, there's nothing. Now, I can add all of that if I want to, but I get nothing here. What Bootstrap does, and let me actually just create a brand new MVC project, just because it's got that Bootstrap automatically there, and I think it's going to be kind of an easy way to highlight Bootstrap. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Chugga. And moving your mouse makes it go faster. There we go. Okay, and let me just make sure that that's set as my startup. Set as startup. There we go. Okay, and let me launch this. So what you're going to notice is MVC by default uses Bootstrap. And what Bootstrap is going to do is it's going to give me a lot of different components and a lot of built-in classes that I can use. So once this comes up here, you'll notice this huge block right here in the middle. That's the Jumbotron class. And so that's what's making that gray, that's what's making that a bigger font. You'll notice that the button here has little rounded corners on it, it's got that blue background, and again, that's because of yet another class inside of Bootstrap. And you'll actually notice, if I do this, content and Bootstrap CSS, here is all of the different classes that have been defined inside of Bootstrap and all of the different defaults that it's going to set on all of the different elements inside of there. So Bootstrap isn't a replacement for CSS. Bootstrap uses CSS. Bootstrap is an out-of-the-box set of CSS classes and defaults and otherwise that you can use. And what's also nice about Bootstrap is the fact that it is, it's an open standard. I think it's the best way to put it. It was put out there by Twitter. And so there's a great community around Bootstrap. And you can find all sorts of different Bootstrap themes out there. So you can just drag and drop that onto your project, and poof, it will automatically look like that theme. Now, at that point, the next question might become, well, wait a minute, if Bootstrap is going to do all of this for me, why am I going to stop and learn CSS? Well, because if you want to tweak something, you're still going to need to know CSS. So using Bootstrap doesn't take away the need to know CSS. It makes a lot of things easier, but you are still going to need to know CSS. So that way, if you want to go in and tweak one little thing, that you know how to do that. I think that's sort of the best way that I can describe Bootstrap versus CSS.
Exactly. I mean, Bootstrap at the end of the day, all the styling is done by CSS, or I should say most of the styling is done by CSS.
Yep.
But I mean, it'll do the heavy lifting for you, but any tweaks you want to make, you'll still have to do that using CSS.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Cool. Well, with that, what do you say we take a break?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see you back here soon, in a couple minutes.
In about 10 minutes. So we'll see you guys then. All right, well, welcome back. This is still adding style with CSS. That's still Helen, and I'm still Christopher. And yay! And we left off the last module really kind of focused in on finding element and how conflicts work. And when we took a look at applying those particular items, we really kind of saw at a very basic level. So we did like classes and IDs and so forth. But, you know, as we all know, our pages are going to be much more complex than that. So I may need to change something based on where it is on the page, or based on the hierarchy, or maybe even based on what the user is currently doing. So if they put their mouse over something, it might be nice to go ahead and highlight that particular spot. And you'll notice that CSS is going to give us a lot of great power in going in and finding the particular sections and items and elements and otherwise that we want on the page. Now, as a real quick side note, a lot of people have asked in the Q&A about CSS3. And one of the things that we didn't mention earlier that's definitely worth mentioning now is, well, CSS, like everything else, is changing over time. And different browsers are implementing different components and pieces sort of on their own schedule, and sometimes they're going to go off and do kind of their own thing. Now, fortunately, as we're going to see a little bit later on today, sometimes they'll actually throw in their own vendor-specific prefix in front of different proposed CSS options, tags, properties, or otherwise. But the long and short of it is, unfortunately, you are going to find that certain things are not always going to work in all browsers. So you will have to go in and test. You will have to kind of make sure that everything still looks good, even if it doesn't necessarily look perfect from browser to browser to browser. And this is probably going to be the first, or not probably, this will be the first section that we're going to see sometimes behavior like that. So it might work in IE, might not work in Chrome, might not work in Safari.
Yeah. So I mean, CSS3, it is CSS. It's a list. It's basically a list of standards that the W3C organization has proposed. They're saying, you know, CSS should contain these things. It should do these things, but it's up to different browsers to actually implement them, right?
Yep.
So when we say CSS3, we typically mean, oh, these are the standards that we expect CSS to behave in. This is what like modern day CSS should look like. Yep. So it is CSS, but there are new features that may or may not be implemented.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's sort of the perfect way, I think, to put it. That's perfect. All right. In any event, let's go ahead and start digging in and taking a look at our different selectors here. So we're going to start off talking about the different ways that we can find items based on their structure. We'll then roll on into these things called pseudo classes and pseudo elements, which allow us to find items based on their type, or rather based on what's happening, what they're doing. And then we'll close it all off with a little section on sizing, and in particular focused in on font sizing rather than maybe sizing boxes and things like that, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But first, let's start talking about our document structure.